Hello and welcome to another episode of the Vialle MX post-race show. That's it. 2025 Monster Energy AMA Supercross has been completed. We have our champions, and in some cases they are as expected, and in other cases a little bit of a surprise, and that's going to make this episode of the Vialle MX post-race show exceptionally interesting and debate-worthy. I'd imagine there's going to be a lot of disagreements, especially in the comments below the video version of this podcast, but that's what makes it fun, of course. And the fun is helped by Decal Works, Yamaha Motor USA, Yoshimura, Motorex, and Fox Racing, all loyal supporters of the Vialle MX post-race show, and we thank them greatly for that. We'll have more from each of those a little later in the show. I'm your host, Lewis Phillips, as per usual, joined by Michael Lindsay. Hello, how are you?
Good. I would normally whine as I do at the beginning of the show about some driving or something terrible in my life, but I can't whine after such an exciting night. We all expected the 250 East Coast to be exciting, and I think it still completely exceeded expectations. So, actually, some fun stuff to talk about.
Yes, but we will start with 450s as is tradition, but of course there isn't so much to unpack there. So 20 minutes or so on the 450 class, and then we will deep dive all that happened in the 250SX East-West Showdown. So Cooper Webb is the champion, and of course going into Salt Lake City, we all expected this. No one really, to be honest, I didn't hear anyone really even entertain the possibility of him losing it, aside from injury or a freak bike issue. Now that the third championship is signed, sealed, delivered, do you look at Webb differently? I don't, but I do. Because I always knew that Webb was great. So it's not like now I'm like, wow, he is amazing. I already knew that. But there is a little part of me that's like, when I start to process what Stu did in his career, what Reed did in his career, and how that picture looks, that's when it starts to tick in my mind of like, this is quite something.
Yeah, that's. I brought that up as my press conference question primarily to him because we think of how much the high regard that we put James and Chad in, and for great reason, of course. Career path, championship path, Dem and Webb not too dissimilar when it comes to Premier Supercross titles, in the sense that they all sat on two before last night, and they weren't back to backs. Like, yes, you look at you have guys like Dungey and particularly Vialle and McGrath and Ricky that had a lot of back-to-back titles, and not that makes things easier, but it adds up the numbers quicker, you know what I mean? When you can do, hey, they won 3 in 3 years, or 3 in 4 years, or 3 in 5, but when, same thing Stu and Chad went through, they kind of raced their generation, each other, Ricky kind of the guys they were around, and they each got 2 fairly early in their Premier Class championship, or Premier Class time, and then never could quite accomplish that third, especially as they started racing the next generation, like, again, the legendary speed was there for them, but it never happened. Coop's, first 2 titles are primarily like Tomac and Ken Roxon and those kinds of guys. So to go up against Chase for the third one, a decent gap between 2 and 3. I said there like, hey, you potentially tomorrow night will surpass, Reed and Stu in that level. And that's, it does make me. Coop is amazing for all the reasons we continue to talk about in this podcast, and we'll continue to talk about him throughout his career. But it does stand out a little extra to me, and I do think, in terms of, I still think, in the moment, people will maybe underappreciate Coop a little bit, but when we really look back at it, whenever this whole thing's done, whether he picks up another title or not throughout his career, and, even he said in the deal, he kind of wondered if another one was ever going to be possible. I think the third one does weigh up quite a bit when I really look at it, compared to some of the other guys we're talking about there. It's really impressive to me.
I loved what he said on the NBC post-race show, where he said, I'm not Eli Tomac, I'm not Chase Sexton, I'm not Jet Lawrence, I'm Cooper freaking Webb. I thought that was really cool. That was maybe my standout from Salt Lake City. Equally, talking about Webb's comments, I found it quite surprising how much he referenced this could be the last one, because not to really get ahead of ourselves here, but when I look at 2026 from a very elementary point of view, potentially you have Chase and Eli on new teams, potentially. Jet coming off of an injury and maybe still working through some bugs with that new bike that didn't get assessed this year because of his lack of race time. Arguably, Webb is actually going to be in a very, very, very good position, a stable position for 2026. So I was surprised to see him, I don't know, so openly acknowledge that this could be the last. It was quite surprising.
I mean, even when you look at the last couple of races, I think again, he's Cooper freaking Webb. He doesn't want to. He's mentally strong. He knows he can get it done. But I mean, he saw how good. He knows how good Chase is. He knows how good Jet is. He knows how good Eli's are when these guys are clicking at full pace. I would think for him, yeah, if it goes back to the stacked field thing. I think him racing for a championship from a playbook standpoint, he works really well in a more like 1-on-1 to 1v2 like situation, because I think his racecraft, the positions he puts himself in, how he capitalizes, really works mentally against guys. I could see like full field could trip you up a little bit, but then in the same breath, full field also can play more in his advantage when those guys bounce around a lot more if he can stay consistent. But I don't know. I think he just knows and appreciates how gnarly it is. And, I know he's talked to you about this in some interviews this year and with other people, basically along the lines of he really is adamant that, he is riding so much better. The field is so much harder than when he won his other two. So even though he continues to elevate himself, I imagine there's also got to be some sense of like, man, can I keep this up? Because this group's just going to keep pushing. I respect the candidness we see from Coop on that. I respect that, he again is so mentally strong and can build himself, and he's very, forward, very proud, very puts himself up there that he can get this done. But in the same breath, he also is one of the first to admit also like how gnarly it is. Hey, this could be the last one. I don't know if I could do this. So I kind of respect that he has all that mental belief, but he can also be honest that this is pretty nuts.
I did dig up an article that I wrote in December, pre-2025 Supercross, and actually the article has aged incredibly well. It almost reads better now with the benefit of hindsight than it did at the time. But in that, he said, I think that I am truly the best version of myself that I have ever been. Even when I look back to my championship winning years, there were some weekends in 2024, so last year, where I rode much better than I did in those seasons, and it was a third place. I would love now to update that and be like, so how well were you riding this year? Because Webb was amazing in 2024, but 2025 was another level again. So I would love for him, I'd imagine he would almost laugh it off now and be like, 2021 and 2019 don't even belong in the same conversation. We can't even make that comparison. That's almost where I feel he would be at this point in the game.
Yeah, I just I was appreciating watching him, Salt Lake. Even some of the rounds lately, we know how good he is, some of his playbook tactics, like some of his technique. We get to the rounds that are really rutted. He's good at shortening up the track. He's good at cutting down. He's good at pivoting the bike quick. He's been for years great at jumping the whoop. Seeing him reinvent himself a little bit this year, he would jump the whoop sometimes, but he fell more into the skim till you die category. Like he really, really worked on that. On the Yamaha, again, just watching him, some of the sweeping bowl corners, he's not always Mr. Cutting it down. He's carrying momentum right up on the top edge in places, like just little things where he's definitely had to work hard round himself out. So I can see him basically being like, yeah, I know I'm riding better. Like I'm not falling, I'm not using my same, couple of key techniques to be amazing on certain nights. He seems more rounded in the way he tackles the tracks, tackles his riding.
I think this is a phenomenal stat. In the last 2 years, so 24 and 25, he has qualified in the top 3 18 times. In the 7 years prior to that, he qualified in the top 3 21 times. That really paints a picture of the improvement that he's made and speaks to what you were saying about him addressing some of his weaknesses and finding another level to keep up with the status quo of Chase, Jet, and everyone else in the field. Going back to his comments, another thing that kind of struck me as quite surprising was in the pre-race press conference on Friday. He was very, very complimentary of Chase. Almost every opportunity he twisted the question into a way of kind of supporting Chase. I don't know if that was a strategic play to maybe be like, hey guy, I'm being really nice to you. Tomorrow, maybe be nice back to me. But it was really a lot of niceness, and it really caught me off guard.
Well, like the two of them, I think just a ton of respect. The and I'm not even going to say, I don't mean dirty. The closest thing this entire championship you could label as dirty, and it wasn't, was Chase's pass in Denver between the two, right? Like there was nothing extreme between them. We had the them messing with each other with some of the finish line stuff, which yeah, some riders that could get under the skin. They're kind of firing back and forth, but like every press conference, like even when Chase said, "Well, I saw red," like Coop's like, "Yeah, I crushed them, so it happens." Like I don't know, they just handled it so well to each other. And yes, like listening them be complimentary, like Chase too, saying like all so many good like aspects of Webb. Actually, speaking of that, so one of the things I brought up in the press conference because of something Chase said, and I brought it up to Webb, and I was again impressed at like the way I worded the question was kind of an opportunity for him to change a narrative if he wanted to, but he still like just took the compliment as is. I was like, hey, Chase said it. We all say it at some point. Like, Webb, you're amazing. One of your things everybody says about you is you win when the opportunity's there, but you take the seconds when they aren't. But I'm like, there's a lot of times we talk about these clutch moments where we see you will yourself to do things. So I'm like, do those contradict each other? Like, do you really think you're just the guy that wins when it is and when it's available and take the seconds, or do we misread it? And he took it as a total. He's like, no, I'm just He's like, yeah, there's nights I've had to dig deep, but I think he took the compliment from what guys have said like that he does he does know how hard it is and how hard he works, but I was just impressed at like I get the way the work question was worded, he could have like took it like, yeah, everybody underestimates me, this and this, but he just took it as, yeah, I work hard, but like everybody's right, like this is just who I am, and he just seems so like happy and content with the season, how everybody's starting to respect him a bit more. Like, in years past, it's always been kind of like, I'm the underdog. And, even as his shirt said, washed up, like there's still a bit of that. But I feel like maybe later part of the season, he's been soaking up a little bit more, that people are starting to, respect him all around the board a little bit more.
Yeah, for sure. I'd agree with that. Each of his title winning years, 2019, 21, 25, he missed the podium 4 times in each of those, which is a bizarrely regular pattern. But what stands out is this year he had one result that was worse than 4th, which is incredible. 16 of 17 races inside of the top 4, and a majority of those on the box. That in itself just speaks volumes about how do you beat this rider.
Yeah, I was thinking about that because I knew he had one result outside the top 4. What was it?
A2.
What was he at A2?
He just 8th. He just
8th. Okay.
Didn't have it in A2. I remember that was one of the few races I actually talked to him after the race, and he was very straight up of like, yeah, that was shit. Like, there's not really much else to say other than that was not it.
I think one thing we forget about, like, everybody faced their challenges this season. I think one thing we also downplay is, hey, Coop came into the season not bad, but he wasn't perfectly healthy between thumb, wrist issues, whatever he had going on. What was, because I know we've talked about it a few pods back, like, again, how Coop can be kind of mislabeled or misrepresented in his championship years. We think, again, he doesn't win that much, and he actually, in his 2 prior title years, has a decent amount of wins. I had not gone back and looked at this. I know you know the numbers. What is his win total this year versus his 2 championship years prior?
5 this year. 21-8, 19-7.
Okay, so that's what I thought. I thought it was the lowest win total he's won a championship with.
Yeah, but at the same time, the lowest win total, but somehow it feels whatever you would describe as the opposite to that. I feel like maybe you'd say lowest win total, but I almost feel like he was in the battle for the win more than ever.
Well, that's what I was going to say. So that's another one. I know this number you would be able to get to. I know we probably don't have it up, but we've had conversations about it, is amount of laps led. You already brought up his qualifying, and I think that's something that stands out more about this season is him being in the battle, is great starts, leading opening laps, whether he hung on to it or not, like great qualifying. Again, not just relying on decent qualifying and putting it together when the mains there and the tracks broke down and the racecraft, the line choice technique came in. He, again, back to what I already said about him being more rounded across the board. That stands out to me. A lot of top starts, a lot of pushing in heat races, a lot of pushing early in the mains that I don't think we've seen in his prior championship years.
Yeah, 120 laps led this year, 21, 108, and 19, 128. So all actually really close. And then, I actually wanted to mention that lap 1 position an average of 5th on a season, but in the last 4 races, 2-1-1-1. That's clutch. When push came to shove, that's it. I don't even know how else you describe that other than that is also a very perfect representation of why Cooper Webb is your champion. And of course, congrats to Yamaha Motor USA as well for their 450SX Championship, their 250SX West Championship, and the Manufacturers Cup. And of course, thank you to them for their support of this podcast as well. Great to see Yamaha back on top, because it struck me on the plane ride home that Yamaha have not won a 450 championship since Tomac 22 Outdoors.
I think yeah.
Which for the juggernaut that is Yamaha and Star Racing, that's a surprisingly, I mean, it's 2 years, so who cares? But it's a surprisingly long drought considering kind of how they're perceived.
Yeah, and then a minor one last year. We talked about coming in the race. I mean, they still got an outdoor title and an SMX with Deegan last year, but Supercross last year. Yeah. Just even what you said, though, like talking about Yamaha in general, is also last year we had more of a shutout in Supercross with an Austrian sweep in SX. On the 250 side. I'm going brain dead.
Yeah.
On the 450 Jetson. But yeah, for them to get it done in both classes. And again, with Webb, I also think it's interesting because I know, again, him getting brought over from KTM, his first year was good, but like some of the stuff off-season, I think there were definitely back to people questioning Webb, even questioning Star, like, oh, this is your stopgap. I think some people maybe just viewed him as a stopgap between, depending on when Tomac left and when Deeks would come up, but they proved, of course, that they made the right decision, and Coop had the right decision of like, no, he's going there to, win this team a championship ultimately. And also it's cool to hear, like, you've probably heard this year dealing with Max up, it sounds like Coop really, now that he's back there, he's there as a racer, but it seems like he plays a little bit of a kind of a mentor role at times. I hear like he's just very, very complimentary, very helping. Like the kids has like a very much motivator, like speech wise and stuff. He's definitely very into his situation.
Yeah, I think you'd call it a team captain role.
Yeah,
captain's probably the best way to put it. But congrats to all. A phenomenal season from Cooper Webb, a phenomenal achievement to rack up title number 3, and yeah. Not much else to say other than a job well done. Chase Sexton won his 7th race of the season. Another phenomenal ride, fairly faultless. Really not much to say. It just looked like he was in control and cruising, honestly. It was almost a bit of a trip to watch because it looked like he was on a consecutive parade laps, is probably the best way I would put it. I was surprised, though, after the race, how hard he was taking the loss, because I presumed he also deciphered from some of what he said in recent weeks, but also added some presumption in there that after Pittsburgh especially, he kind of mentally said, okay, it's still possible, but this is now unlikely. But in contrast to that, he was having a hard time with it after the race. Yeah. It was actually quite gut-wrenching, to be honest. And in reality, 2 points. When do you ever see it come down to that? Like 2017, the famous Dungey Tomac battle, that was 5. I could look at 2011 and 2006. Those are the other 2 instances that would be around there. But a 2-point loss is extremely rare for the 450 Supercross championship.
Well, back to gut wrenching, because you had a very good interview with him. I know that's on pod platform. I'm guessing are we running that as an individual tomorrow?
Yes, we just need to clean it up a little bit.
You mean the hanging news comment?
There's a little bit of work that needs to be done.
But no, I was what would you call it, a passenger or a spectator to that interview, and yeah, some of the comments Chase had was like, even though he kind of knew it was gone, he commented to you about like really still believing until crossing the finish line, like still just kind of like, I'm going to put myself in the lead and hope things happen and have that belief that something can work out for himself, which I really give props to not just basically, like you said, kind of giving up at the last round, for him to still be able to mentally flip that switch and be like, I'm still in this. I'm going to race for it. It is what it is. So that was kind of interesting to hear. And then when you said that, you're like, yeah, you've lost by only 2 points, and he hadn't done the math yet.
Yeah, I didn't like that.
He was
moment.
Like, really only 2. I hate to say it. I'll just clear it as the elephant in the room. I mean, yeah, it's some people can look at. I even heard a couple of people say, oh, if he just would have won at Pittsburgh, And Chase says he kind of points to the middle of the season. The obvious one is the Triple Crown, where the whether you want to say the ego, the want to win, whatever it was, kind of overrode the situation. That's the easiest to go back to and go, man, that point spread, that would be it. Easy to say if and buts. Even if you would have won it, you never know how that would have changed trajectory of everybody's mentality of the season. But that's the easiest thing to look back on. And I'm sure, this. I said this before in a pod we talked about. I wanted to ask Chase this: is war to war is him and Coop win on this, and he kept saying in the press conferences, man, Coop makes you be perfect every single weekend. I will say, because again, he goes to race a full field again next week with Jet back on the gate, Tomac, depending on how everybody is pace wise. Like, we all know at any given night, Chase can be the best in the world, even against, kind of label between him, Eli, and Jet on raw speed. We can always bet that Chase can do it. I wonder if this championship battle with Coop could, teach him those couple of lessons to actually make him a more formidable opponent when it comes to title hunts down the road with Jet, with, Eli will be gone soon, but being able to manage it maybe a little more than those guys, kind of being able to take those lessons from Webb and be able to mix his pure raw talent, speed, performance, and be able to just have enough, frame of mind on the right nights to keep it together and win these things.
Yeah, I think the Webb battle this year, the lessons with working on KTM bike setup and overcoming that in areas, I think that all around, everything that Chase Sexton has gone through in the last year and a half has really brought him on as a rider as far as well-roundedness goes. And I think he would also speak highly of that as well.
Because one last one, I believe you asked him if he honestly felt, I think you said, are you riding better? You got to feel like you're riding better than what year did you quote 2023's last Honda year, right? And he said, again, it was a positive and a negative because of his mood. He was like, well, yeah, I am riding better and I am a better rider. I'm a better racer right now, but I still didn't win the championship.
Yeah, and the biggest thing that stuck out, I can't remember if he said this in the interview or off record. I think it was in the interview. But he said, obviously, social media, a difficult place. So I think it was in reference to this. But he said, so it was, I don't want to, this isn't a direct quote, it's in the interview, I'm certain, but he said something like, I'm not crying and well done to Coop, but I also feel like I deserve this. And I said to him, no, that's not wrong. You can stand there and be like, Coop deserves this, but so do I. That is completely acceptable, especially when it comes down to 2 points. Yeah, to be honest, I've never been that close to someone who's kind of processing the loss of a championship.
Yeah.
It was a lot for me. It was a bit of a trip for me, to be honest.
Because he would get lost into talking to you, and then he'd hear a Webb bike rev, and you could see it almost be like a shiver down the spine kind of thing. He was definitely dealing with it. And because it's that close of a points haul and how toe-to-toe they went all year, I do agree with you. Yes, it's Coop's style. Coop won it. Coop deserves it. In the same breath, I do get what you mean. And it's not a cop-out. It's not a participation trophy way of saying it. It's Chase was that close. One tiny little thing happens different anywhere else, and this is his. So, yes, in a sense, very deserving because, yes, the race I mentioned that he threw away, that is the best Chase Sexton we've seen. He has been more consistent across races. He has had better frame of mind for championship. He had a great win total this year. He's been amazing, plain and simple.
Yeah, honestly, the 45 minutes or so that I spent with Chase after the race will stick with me forever. Because, like I say, I've never been that close to that thought process, and it was I don't know what you'd call it, eye-opening. Yeah,
it's just intriguing. It shows you more what these guys face and what they deal with on their good nights or bad nights. It's fun to. I say fun, I feel for him. I know it's not a fun experience for him, but if you've ever wondered what it's like to hear these guys afterwards, that's kind of why I had a shit to do too. But I kind of was hanging around for a little bit with you two because I was just it was interesting to hear him process this and deal with it.
And I'm an emotional person as well, so I really just took his emotions on very easily because that's just me. But the good news for Chase is it sounds like the little outdoor testing that he's done has been insanely productive, and he's miles ahead of where he was last year. And to be honest with you, knowing Chase as well as I do, I think that all this does is spurs him on, and he comes into Parlour incredibly focused and like a man on a mission. What that transpires to in results, I don't know, but I do think that I think there's going to be a conversation about at some point about whether this has a negative effect on outdoors or a positive. I fully believe it's positive. I really do. Because he's not the type of guy to just wallow. He's the type of guy to be fucking pissed off and want to show everyone.
Yeah, and I'm curious because on one hand you could be like, oh, him and Coop had to go down to the wire. Jet's not been on the bike very long. Eli has not been on the bike very long. We know that Eli's, we've heard is maybe dealing with some pain in the leg, a couple things. So it's not like any of his competition, his mainstay for outdoors has like a huge head start, even if he had to stick this out a little longer. So I don't. Right? Jesus, of course, I had to sneeze. I don't look at it as like, oh, he's going to be way behind schedule again. Like I overheard that comment. Like he was very stoked when I was riding on Desmond's on Tuesday and where his pace and the bike and how he just felt straight up being able to do motos. So it makes hearing that comment, like I'm very, very excited for the opening round of outdoors, of course.
Yes. Congrats to Coop. Congrats to Chase. 2 points at the end. That means that 2025 and both of their contributions, good and bad, will go down in history and be referenced for years to come. Very surprised was Lewis at how deep Malcolm ran it in on Coop late in the main event. Did not see that coming at all. Very, very surprised. I don't know if that was some sort of maybe half-hearted attempt to help Chase. I don't know if that was just Malcolm going to the front. I don't really know, but I was just surprised. I didn't expect to see that. It was definitely more than I expected.
Yeah, I think so. I think, of course, you can easily cross your mind of like, oh, is he trying to help a little bit? But also, he had been on Coop for quite a few laps. I think he just wanted to, stamp it and get it over with. Malcolm rode fantastic. It was just an overall, like, tell me if you felt the same way. So we get through opening couple laps. Chase takes the lead, starts to pull out, and Webb was having, not the strongest. He did what he needed to do, getting the start, getting out there early. But as the race started to unfold a little bit, it's like, okay, it may seem like a foregone conclusion, but in the same breath, you could see the path to it falling apart for Webb. His riding was a little bit mixed. It wasn't one of his better performances of the year. Jay Coop gets to him, and you can kind of see Jay Coop in the same position as last week, like gets right to him and is like, what do I do? He having to hang up on rhythm lanes because he's right on Webb. Malcolm's there, and then we'll get to him, but like Shane McElrath was right there as well, and I was sitting there for a minute going, wow, this may seem like, oh, Coop's just going to settle in and be fine, but all it would take is Coop really messing up one of those big rhythm lanes, and really just the dominoes could have fallen really, really quickly for him. So while, like I said, we may have looked at it as not that much of a pressure situation, it definitely could have unfolded quite differently.
Well, I think in hindsight, hanging on to second in Denver was a much, 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 much bigger deal than we maybe gave it credit for, because that was that. Much, much bigger deal than we gave it credit for. Before we move on from Chase, actually, I wanted to say, because I like these sort of coincidences, with 2025 Supercross complete, Chase Sexton has now led 486 laps in his 450 career, which is, of course, his amateur number. And I like it I like those coincidences. They're funny to me. Like,
one lap comment on Chase. Like, I know we're still. I think things will become much clearer in the next week or two, but God, I hope he stays put. He looks so good in his current situation.
Yeah, I guess we will see one way or another. I think, by the end of May, I guess. Well, it won't be public by the end of May, but I'd imagine that he will make a decision here kind of soon. I mean, he kind of has to. Clock's ticking. But yeah, congrats once again to Coop and Chase for an incredible duel. I'm curious, if I had spoken to Justin Cooper, which I didn't after the race, I couldn't find him, I would have been curious to ask at what point it was decided by him or communicated to him that it was okay to pass Coop, because he just sat there for a long time and then randomly went. There must have been a pitboard message that said, okay, go. It must have been linked to Malcolm and that battle for third in the championship as well, I'd imagine. But yeah, I'd just be curious to know what the plan was and how that was communicated. But obviously, we don't know. Bad journalist, Lewis, for not getting to the bottom of this.
I'll talk about a little bit of 250s. Like, I get Jay Coop having to hang back, but as soon as they knew that, like, Malcolm maybe had the pace to get him to, like, man, you can only play tail gunner for so long, and I kind of wonder, like, look, they practice together all the time, but Webb cannot feel good with knowing that Jacob's like hanging up behind him and like right so close to him. There's a part of me, it's like, would it be better for Jacob to make the move and hopefully Webb can, basically relax and try to hang on to him kind of thing.
Yeah.
I had a similar thought watching in 250s with Juju and Tom, because Juju definitely held up for a little bit. And there's a part of me, it's like, Tom's having some struggling laps. I think it'd be better if Juju just went through. Like, Tom could at least maybe just settle in and try to go with him. And I definitely had that thought at one point with Jacob. I was like, maybe if he goes through, Webb could just latch onto that, settle in, maybe fix one or two things he's doing wrong if he just sees it right in front of him. Because we all know Chase got away quickly, and it had been a while since he had seen that. Like, could that have helped more? Because I didn't know if Jacob sitting back was really actually doing him any good in this situation.
Yeah, no, for sure. But what Jacob did, I've supported much more than what Aaron Plessinger did in contrast. And talking to AP after Denver, I did put it to him very straight that, like, you are very, very good friends with Coop. You are very, very good friends with Chase. And he was very adamant that ultimately his goal for Salt Lake City was to protect his friendships, which I get. And of course, no one expected or wanted AP to get involved, do anything dirty, do anything stupid. But I've never seen someone, I don't know what you'd call it, throw the towel, back away. It was honestly a crazy optic where AP basically, he laid up for Coop a little bit, laid up for Chase a little bit, and you're like, okay, now he'll just ride in first.
No, he just cruised.
He apparently was very interested in protecting his friendships with McElrath and Jacob and Savachi. And apparently there was a lot of friendships that AP really wanted to assist in his Salt Lake City ride. Honestly, I've never, and again, social media, as is the way of the world, I tweeted last night that I've never seen anything like that, I don't think. And of course, people are coming down on me for this for some reason. But I've never seen anything like this. It was honestly wild. It was wild.
We talked about it before. I ran into Aaron after the race. He was so stoked on his starts. If you looked at this black and white and thought, oh, he just didn't ride good. He definitely didn't sound like a man that didn't ride good. He was very happy on the night. I think he was just very happy to stay the hell out of it. He's like, my starts are good. And he was talking to somebody I was standing with and even gave me a hug before he left and everybody in the group. And he was just very happy and walked off. And I'm like, yep, that man just did his thing tonight. Plain and simple.
He basically did the equivalent of riding off the track. He didn't ride off the track, but he basically did as good as that.
Which I respect. Like, it's, again, back to... it's got to be a little tough for KTM, but they have to understand the situation that he's not going to mess with it. Because, again, back to Coop's pace not being great, you look at Malcolm, but it's like, oh, well, if Aaron was in there and had pace, like, there's the points, potentially. I respect it. Aaron's just like, F this, I'm out.
If Aaron stayed in it, we might have had Coop and then just Jacob and AP just shadowing him, and it would have been like a little freight train of...
Through him just following him all the way to the finish.
Like ducklings following the mother duck.
Jacob and Aaron are stopping in corners going, no, you pass him, no, you pass him, no, you pass him.
I've just never seen anything like what AP did. And again, no one, including me here, expected him to get involved, do anything dumb, anything like that. But I think there was a better way. Like I say, let Coop go, let Chase go, and then on you go with your race. But no, apparently very interested in helping many other people. Also, Dean Wilson had a seventh, his season best result, his short season best result, and rode phenomenally in the heat race. Incredible ride. He injured his back on Tuesday, so he was questionable to even race. And this caps off...
He crashed in the pits too.
Yes, he crashed in the pits too. And he also turned up to the track 3 hours early. Despite all of that, overcame it for his season best result and caps off a successful fill-in run. Exceeded my expectations and I think 99% of the general public's. It's been really good, and he confirmed after the race, he didn't say who, but he said he's got an offer to do full Supercross in 2026 already. So maybe Dean's back in. It honestly wouldn't surprise me. And the vibe when he told me this wasn't, but fuck that. It was like, I've got an offer.
It's funny, not to accuse Dean of not trying last year too, but he was very adamant, the last 3 months since he found out he was going to do this deal. Like, he joked, he goes, I haven't had drink a beer, a sip of wine, anything. Like, he was as locked in. He basically said he was going to be as locked in as he's near the best he's ever been in his career, because he wanted to make the best of this opportunity in case it was the last bit. And yes, I think for somebody that's been in it as long as him, Yeah, there's a part of a grueling grind to that, but I also think he saw the reward payoff side where it's like, man, I still can't do this if I just really, really buckle down to the nitty and gritty. And uh, I think I probably said the same thing to him almost every day. I went up after the race and shook his hand and said, "Man, you're pretty good at this. You should just come back and do this again next year." And he was all smiles. Yeah, super impressive. I'm sure a lot of guys point out, but he caught me off guard in the main his heat race and his main event. He was the only guy threeing into the rhythm lane that would be on the west side of the stadium where everybody else was going two and then three,
Out
three,
of turn
three,
two.
three. Yeah, he was threeing in lap after lap. Every once in a while he'd spin and not be able to do it. But I remember somebody asked me early in the day, "Oh, is anybody gonna have three in there?" I'm like, "No, it's a 3-3 to a tall 5." And I don't know what you would do after that. I don't think it's worth it. Dean looked great, man. It's just amazing. He falls in the category we talked about as Malcolm. Like, these guys just keep going. It's just cool.
Well, I said it last week. Maybe it's that Yoshimura power just reviving his love, his addiction for the sport. And I think that maybe my words, I spoke it into existence, and it may come true. And you too can get a similar boost, both in performance and mood vibe, with Yoshimura by heading to yoshimura-rd.com and seeing all that they have available for your bike. You can head to the where to buy section for an even better look at the convenience and how easy it is to attach your ride with a boost in performance, the same boost in performance for Honda HRC Progressive. Take advantage of each and every weekend. Before we move on to 250s, of course, props to Shane McElrath, who was great in Salt Lake City, but not only that, has been great now since Foxborough, really turning it around from what was rock bottom. I don't know where his career goes from here. I don't know what doors this opens, but this is one of the greater comeback stories that we've had in recent memory, because he was on pace with the podium runners in the dry, which we haven't seen since he moved to the 450 class.
Yeah,
So,
and it wasn't just a couple laps. Like, he was there for a while. Like, I was very, very impressed.
yes, he deserves all of the credit in the world. So, 250 time?
3 quick notes for you.
Okay.
Dylan Ferrandis will not be racing pro motocross. Still dealing with some health issues, and then he's got like stress fractures in one of his legs. So we will not see him back for pro motocross. We'll be back for SMX, and I think is planning on potentially doing Supercross only next year. Another go. Also, fun around the pits rumor is that Hill, or something about Hill, I heard that Tedder is talking to a bunch of teams about, potentially combining forces with guys next year. So we may see Hill on something else. And then last one, just a funny comment, ill-timed to 250s. I watched Joey Savacci ride over to the PC truck after the race, and I think it was Mitch's wife looked at him and goes, "Do you feel sorry for us?" And he made some sort of comment about reliving it and having PTSD. Of course, the Osborne Joey title, I think, was fresh in his mind. So I thought that was quite funny and sweet of Joey to come over after the race.
Yes, and of course, the incident that led to that will now be discussed at length. But you know what? In the interest of housekeeping, keeping everything in line, we can tuck this one away quite quickly to start 250s. Well done, Haiden Deegan. Dominant ride. Underlined your season. Great championship. You rode phenomenally. Brilliant stuff. Good work. All of that. Well done. This night wasn't about you, though, so here's your credit. We're moving on. Fair?
Fair enough.
Brilliant. Tidied that away really nicely. So, where to even begin? Do we do it chronological order, or do we just go straight to the RJ and Seth incident?
No, let's go chronological, because that was living in the moment, seeing that it didn't start out as a heads up like winner take all between the three. Just almost the perfect chaos of more West, a couple West guys out front, Tom and Seth with okay starts, RJ farther back, and let it roll.
I honestly thought early on that Tom had it under control. He got track position early in the main event. Hammaker was very untidy early on, similar to Pittsburgh. Tom looked strong, steady, perfect almost. And to be honest, lap 3, lap 4, in my head, I was like, well, I guess this is done. Tom's just going to control this. That soon became unraveled. I don't know. Although it did look like Seth had it under control, at the same time that Seth kind of got his mitts on it, RJ started to really ramp it up.
I think RJ had now that one caught me because again, you said Tom was so good the first couple laps. I kept an eye on RJ. I was impressed. RJ let it rip from about lap 2 on. He was moving. And that's what caught me the most off guard because at the beginning, like I wasn't quite as set as you on, oh, it's Tom's, but I was like, okay, we're gonna have, especially, I mean, it was a lot of laps. I didn't mention that in 450s. I think Chase did 27, 250s did 20. I mean, I knew there was a lot to play between Tom and Seth, but I'll be honest, I wrote RJ off pretty early. Like I didn't think he was gonna get to both of them. And I didn't think he was gonna get there even as quickly as he did.
See, I thought he was going to get to them, but not as quickly as he did. Maybe the first lap or two, it was a bit shaky, but after that, there was some solid progress. And of course, you know, with RJ, he's going to send it. And at this point, let's just get straight into that pass, and then we'll kind of go backwards to Juju. At that point, everyone is saying that RJ took the title from Hammaker, but I would argue that at that point, RJ, despite not being ahead, was the one in the driver's seat because I felt like RJ had the speed to pass Hammaker, pass Juju, and then that would be enough. Now, of course, if Hammaker got Juju, it wouldn't be enough, so that's a murky grey area in this thing. But RJ was the one who kind of had the upper hand over his title rivals. So I don't know why he felt the need to rush the pass, make it there, make it on that lap, and why not wait another lap. I don't know what the end goal was there. I also don't know if the end goal was to put Seth down, because he didn't need that, but he did need a little bit of help with Seth.
Yeah, I've struggled with this one because I mean, of course, in the moment, I'll say it. I threw out a couple expletives. I was very like, and just like, what the are we doing here? To your point, because it's like, okay, that wasn't the position you needed. You needed the position ahead of him. I get that the time is clicking. There's a lot on the line. It felt rushed to me, and then the biggest one from a racer standpoint, the corner choice itself. Unless you were trying to do something, I have a hard time personally believing it's just an aggressive move to try to make it happen because that is such a tight corner and the way Seth's come in, like, you know, if you're going in to take somebody's line away, you do it in a corner where the person you're racing again kind of has an opportunity to see you out of your peripheral, so they'll shut down, or you end up in the situation where they fully connect. And that's kind of what hit me in that corner. I'm like, man, there was like almost no chance in hell this was going to end well for you. You went to top of the berm, corner where Seth's not going to see you until the tire is into Seth. I have just a hard time. I know it's racing. I know things go blackout, but man, I can't figure out how that was supposed to end.
Just for context, so in that position, had RJ passed Hammaker and Juju had stayed between, RJ would have been champ. If Hammaker had followed RJ past Juju, they would have tied, and Hampshire would have had the most wins, won more than RJ, so would have got it on a tiebreak. So that's why RJ needed the tiniest bit of help with Seth, and maybe why there was a reason to get overly aggressive with him, but there wasn't a need for that. And I mean, he would have. I think if you're RJ, you can take confidence from how well you're seeing Juju ride. Yeah. Like, you know, you're like, okay, Juju looks like he can hold on and sit between us. Like, I'm fairly believable. I fairly believe that could be the reality. Yeah. I just don't know I don't know.
And it's a tough one because, like, okay, you've probably read RJ's IG post, correct? I mean, the way it reads, like, I fought so hard to put myself in this position and just kind of like left it vague, not somebody that really defended his actions, you know what I mean? So I was like, man, it gives me a vibe that you definitely, I get it, if that's where you're okay with doing it. I'm not gonna sit here and give a freaking moral speech, but I'm like, kind of read to me as a guy that was okay with knowing he was probably gonna have to make something, force it to get the result he needed, which if that's how, you know, it was a hard one. Let's say it would have worked out. You know, there was I go back to like the Haiden thing last week against Cole. Like, yeah, got a mixed reaction. Some people weren't stoked on it, but I think me and you both agreed the racing move itself, like we could see the intent wasn't there. I'm fairly okay at the pass. That's one of those ones, like, let's say it would have worked. Let's say RJ basically straight up either would have punted him off or put him on the ground or something enough to create that gap that he didn't need Juju. Man, is that title's a title, but man, it would be a messy one. I feel like that'd be messier than You can go back to the other Husky versus PC. You can go to the Joey Osborne one, but that was it's so the intricacies, the last corner, last ditch effort versus you have time. There's a way to win it. You just chose that as the way you were trying to win it.
I think, to be clear, RJ denied interviews after the race. Seth didn't. So that's why you'll see interviews with Seth and not RJ. Yeah. I think there is an element with RJ, and there always is, and I think there even would be in this scenario, where he's a little bit like, well, I gave it all I got, and I can't be... There's an element where I can't criticize myself for that because I laid it all on the track.
That's why I say I'm not going to give a moral speech. Like, I'm not saying like, shit, they did it. Like, I kind of read it in RJ's tone in the IG. Like, yeah, he, in a sense, he's not a dirty son of a bitch, but he's okay with, hey, if I got to make it happen, I got to make it happen. And there's a certain level of like, I understand it. Like, it's a lot of money on the line. It's a lot of prestige. It's you work really hard, and we all know of the three we're talking about, RJ's had the most hell to get here this year with injuries and stuff. It is just optics is interesting. Like, I went by the PC dinner like afterwards, and Mitch was not stoked. Mitch said things that's not repeatable on the podcast.
Yeah, and also just to be clear, RJ did go down to Pro Circuit.
He did.
Spoke to Mitch, but not Seth. And Seth said that he didn't care because, honestly, he had no time for him in that moment anyway, which is also to be expected. But let me ask you this. If that was a clean pass, both stayed up, the race went on, does RJ win a championship or does Seth?
That's a tough one because my personal gut feeling is comparing like Tom got passed and got a little bit dropped. I think Seth had more to hang out, more to go. I think he would have tried to go with RJ more. So I think when they got to Juju, things would have got messy. And I don't know where it would have gone because I do think Juju's riding was good, but as we'll get to, I think Juju was also a little okay helping. He was not stoked with Seth. I think he was a little okay with helping. So when they got there, would he have let RJ through and then been really a roadblock for Seth? Maybe. I can't say certainty, but I kind of lean towards what you're saying. I think RJ would get the title because I think it would have gotten messy once they got to Juju. Something else would have happened. I'm not saying like put him down, but there's a lot of scenarios that could have gone down once they got to Juju that would have made it very difficult for Seth.
I agree but disagree. I do think RJ would have won. I think that, in my opinion, RJ had the advantage where he would have just been able to ride away from Seth. I don't think that Seth would have been able to retaliate. Hang with him, yes. Retaliate, no. I don't think Juju would have... I don't think anything else would have happened in that scenario, but I do think that there would have been a high chance that Juju just stays ahead of Seth, and that would have given RJ what he needs. But again, similar to what I said about how 450s will be referenced forever because of the tightness, this will be referenced forever because of the tightness and also the craziness. This will be a debate that rages on long into outdoors and probably follows RJ specifically around in his comment section for some time. Unfortunate as it is. So circling back now to the Juju situation. I spoke to Juju after the race. I like Juju, to be clear. I said to him, like, oh, so you got like quite aggressive with Seth. What's the deal? Without hesitation, he hit back and said, Seth pissed me off. He hit me really hard in the first turn. I saw red. Like, there wasn't... It came across as very genuine to me because there was no pause. There was no thinking. It was immediately, he pissed me off. So I do, rightly or wrongly, and I think a lot of people don't want to hear this, I do believe that to a degree. Now, of course, is Tom Juju's teammate? Yes. Did that maybe fuel the fire a little more? Yes, but I don't think the Juju was just out to help Tom. I really don't. And I think that's an unpopular opinion. I realise that. But that's where I'm at, personally.
Yeah. There's also, and I understand, but there was also, I have not listened back to the presser. I don't know if it was the presser. He said something that definitely, like, I know the KTM team picked up on and was very cautious how he spoke further because I don't know how he worded what he worded, but there was definitely something the KTM team was worried that, hey, the way you said that could be taken as like a team tactics, like you were checking up. Like something he said about when he got to Tom, I guess. And I definitely had an interpretation from a personal, kind of like what we said about the Jake Coop thing. Like when he got to Tom, he was definitely in a weird spot, like how he was racing Tom.
But to be honest, he was pushing Tom hard. Like I
He
was
almost
thinking,
landed on Tom. Dude, Tom cross jumped the shit out of him
but
like
like
3 times.
Juju didn't sit behind him. Juju put serious heat on Tom for multiple laps. Like I was thinking to myself, like, yes, of course, Juju has to be careful around Tom, and he's being careful, but this is a lot. This is hot and heavy for Tom
That
to
was one
deal
of those
with.
moments where I fall back to the Webb thing. I almost went to yell at Tom. I'm like, dude, just let him by, because basically Juju had to purposely case stuff because he was going to obliterate Tom, because Tom was cross jumping him and kind of getting like checking up his pace. Like basically Tom jumped from one side track right onto his line on off, and Juju almost had to jump himself into the freaking top blocks to avoid taking them both down.
I mean, again, this is unpopular, I think, but hey, the point of this podcast is to give our personal opinions, rightly or wrongly. There is a part of me that's like, after that Supercross triple in that corner, Seth didn't cover the inside at all. He left the door open. So you've got to be smarter and more aware than that. And Juju, by all accounts, if you're a rider out there, Juju on a slick, hard-packed track, he's someone you worry about whether you pass him or not. He's going to be a force to be reckoned with, and so you can't just pass him and forget about him. So I just don't think it's as malicious, calculated, or any of that like everyone thinks. And also, if you want to circle back, and now this is turning into a bit too much of a defense maybe, but last week in Denver, Juju was very outspoken in my interview and other interviews that he needed to get tougher and he needed to fight for positions more and not just lay up. So maybe that in his head was just like spurring him on a little more. Maybe he was a bit blasé about what was going on around him because he was so focused on slaying these personal demons. I don't know.
I also think it's a tough one. The East-West showdown for the finale is very tough to measure like this, because I also get like Juju's point, stuff the shit out of me. Seth had 2 people on his mind. That's it. RJ and Tom, because that's it. You know, the race with inside of a race thing. Like if Seth or like Juju see red because Seth stuffed me. I'm like, I don't even know if Seth knew who he bounced off of, because Seth has a race inside of a race to deal with.
Just to complete this picture, when I spoke to Seth, I told him what Juju has said, and Seth looked at me about as puzzled as anyone has ever looked at me.
I heard he say he's like, what?
Yeah, he had no clue. He had no idea what I was talking about. But he did say, in turn, I don't remember hitting Juju, but Tom hit me really hard. So there's layers upon layers upon layers to this. But of course, it's only fitting that we've done 20 minutes on 250s without even talking about the champion.
We're getting. Hey, again, do you want to start the apology or the what do you call it now?
Well, it changes every week depending on the mood. This week, like the movie Inside Out, we may just have all of the emotions together and just call it the Tom Vialle celebration, apology, and sympathy corner, because there is a little bit of everything in here. Celebration because he won the championship, apology because he's getting shit on everywhere, and sympathy because he's not really getting the credit he deserves as a 2-time champion.
And a 2-time MX, like, great credentials.
Yeah, I said it last week. If he won, like, compare him to Marv, compare him to Porcel, compare him to all of these guys, and he's achieved a lot more at this point in his career. But elephant in the room, yes, he did get dropped by Seth and RJ, and yes, it's only fair to say he had no shot unless something happened to those two. And that is racing. He stayed in it. He could have thrown it away himself. Important to address this because I've had tweets about this. I guess Tom said in a press conference or an interview something like, I knew RJ would do something to Seth. So now there are people who are saying RJ did this to help Tom and KTM, which is maybe the dumbest thing I've ever heard anyone say.
We just know that even his own team manager Ramsey calls him Ricochet Rick. It's just RJ,
that aside, RJ has his own title to win. Why is RJ caring about Tom?
I know. And it's not like they're buddy. Not to say they don't like each other. I've never seen them.
Whether they're best friends, RJ has his own title to win.
Yeah.
Like, RJ's in it. That's point blank. There's no other explanation needed. But to be clear, I haven't clarified this with Tom, but it's quite obvious, so I'm just going to say it. When Tom said that, he meant, I knew that RJ was going to send it like crazy and hit Seth or do something dumb and I could capitalize. That's what he meant.
Yeah.
Because everyone knows that RJ will send it. So that's that. And we can please never contact me again if you want to tell me that RJ did this to help KTM. Just block me or delete apps maybe, or throw your phone away. I don't know. So there's that. now there's the people saying that Tom Vialle is the most underwhelming two-time Supercross champ, blah, blah, blah. You don't become a Supercross champ, let alone a two-time, by accident. You are doing something right in that arena to pull off these championships. And let's not forget, if we're being truthful here, if Tom hadn't fallen victim to the mud in Foxborough, we're not even in this situation. He's got a 10, 15-point advantage going into the last round, and he's riding around to clinch. So Tom didn't luck into this. It's not like Tom was out of the championship all year and then RJ and Seth threw it away at the final round. Was Tom the outright best rider in Salt Lake City? No. Was he the best outright rider in this championship? Probably not. But he's still a deserving champion.
Yeah. That's like when you were saying celebrated like a Porcel or Marvin. One thing, this is why you're right, Tom needs an apology corner. I am very curious, of course, to see his path from here because he's a two-time MX2 world champ. He's a two-time divisional Supercross champion now. And again, you don't luck into these things. I'm curious, you'd have to math this. I'm pretty sure he has the lowest win total of any divisional two-time Supercross champion. We're like, there's the joke. Ferry won one without winning, but 2 championships with, correct me if I'm wrong, 3 Supercross wins. Definitely interesting. Like, there is a part of me that kind of, I hate to say it, wanted to see partway through the race, there was a part of me that was like, I kind of almost want to see RJ win this because I want to see Tom build another year before going 450, and then Seth has plenty of time ahead of him. Because I'm very curious now. We have now, one part we've talked about silly season, like we have locked out a part of it. RJ, we already knew was going to go 450s because he won last year and was far enough in his 250 career. Tom had a weird little thing where if he didn't win this year, he could stay one more year. Well, now Tom Vialle is going to be a 450 Supercross racer next year.
Yes, and again, you don't luck into that. That rule is in place because you've won so much that you are literally too good for this class now. And that's the position Tom's in. Again, was he the best rider? Was he incredible, jaw-dropping, amazing? No. But was he effective, solid, consistent, and everything a champion should be? Mm-hmm. Yes. I tweeted this as well, and this didn't go down well at all either. But I feel like it's relevant. A lot of hate about Tom's win total, etc. But he turned pro in Supercross at the same time as Deegan, and his stats are in the same realm as Deegan. 3 wins to Hayden's 7. So a 4-win difference. To me, that's, of course, it's noteworthy, but that's not shocking and like, oh my God, that's crazy. 13 podiums to Hayden's 17. Again, that's comparable in the ballpark. And 2 titles to Hayden's 1. Like, those stats are fairly similar. If you're saying that Tom is just a piece of shit, then you're really saying that Haiden isn't far from that, is my point. That was kind of my point with the tweet. Yeah. But no one got
I think, and again, I'm trying to think of how to say this because I'm not trying to follow a narrative he won't be effective. I'm just curious, looking at the way he's accomplished his way through. It's not from I doubt him. I'm just genuinely like, it's an exciting storyline to me. It's one that I have so many question marks. I'm curious where his 450 career goes. I'm curious to see what he is capable of on a 450, what he is like throughout a season. What his pace. I'm just curious. It's not a good or a bad thing. I'm just like super curious to see where it goes from here because he definitely, like I said, when you rattle off those numbers, it's not too indifferent. But when you watch how it's visually looked, it's like, okay, I just don't know where this goes, and that's not a good thing or a bad thing. Like, you look at his credentials and you're like, he should be capable of great things, but then also like some of the pure results come in. It's like, okay, how's he gonna do on a 450? Like, is this trend gonna continue? You know what I mean? When you look at like how effective Chase and Webb are, that's what I basically mean.
Well, I think Tom will be Plessinger, Ferrandis, Malcolm in that range, top of that range, bottom of that range on different weekends, and that's fine. The first year will be learning. I don't think anyone is going to be expecting. This will help. Actually, I thought of this earlier. This will help Tom massively. He is so disrespected that expectations for his 450 rookie season will be so goddamn low that if he does anything from a 7th to a 2nd in a heat, everyone will be like, would you look at that?
Yeah.
Look at Tom Vialle, incredible. So in actual fact, this favours him, I think, a little bit versus him coming into 450s where everyone's like, oh, he's going to win races, and then he doesn't, and everyone's up in arms.
Because what I'm getting back to is you take, I don't know, again, we go back to the credentials, 2-2 on titles. You take so many other people, if they had those type of credentials, there would be a lot of pressure on them going 450. There would be a lot of people being like, well, clearly the pathway, this guy should be able to get it done. And that's where I said it back to, I'm curious. I'm not doubting Tom. Maybe it happens, maybe it doesn't, but his situation definitely favors him where everybody's just kind of like, there's definitely some dismissal in a sense of what he is capable of, even though the credential says otherwise.
It's all questionable, but I think if I was going to give an overarching opinion, it would be, if there's anything we've learned from Tom Vialle in GPs and Tom Vialle in America, it's that he's a clincher and pressure doesn't really have that much of an impact. So those two attributes should play well when he moves into the 450 class and faces pressure and needs to make something happen. So, congrats to Tom, of course. 2-time champion is nothing to be sniffed at, and no one would have called this when he moved to America, I don't think, and his success is noteworthy, should be celebrated, and he certainly shouldn't be getting the shit that I've seen online today, and that's sad. But of course, the Tom Vialle celebration, apology, and sympathy corner has been presented by Motorex all season long. Motorex, known for high-quality engine oils, also has an entire line of clean, care, and lube products to keep your bike running strong and looking great. Maintenance made easy with race-proven Motorex clean, care, and lube products. And of course, congrats to Decal Works on the 250SX East title. They had the #1 plates prepped and ready to go for Tom Vialle, and somewhere in Salt Lake City they probably had them prepped and ready to go for Chase Sexton as well. But the less said about that, the better. A phenomenal season for Decal Works with the Red Bull KTM factory racing team, and you can head to decalmx.com to get your own fresh look and fully customizable. A lot to see, a lot to do on decalmx.com. Moserman was a very quiet fifth, but impressive. I feel like that's noteworthy in itself. Marchbanks did really well to come from 16th on lap 1 to 7th, and of course he shined brightly in his Fox Racing gear, bold, untamed, and pushing the boundaries of aesthetic, style, and design. Fox Racing's new Spring MX graphics, launching with Hello Future, disrupt the status quo and make no apologies for the interruption. Compromised of head-to-toe kits, plus a slew of head-turning men's and women's lifestyle pieces, the spirited graphic combined with dialed-in fit, comfort, and construction sends a message loud, clear, and confidently. The future belongs to those brave enough to answer the call. Thank you to Fox Racing for their support of this podcast, and of course, commiserations for coming up so short with Seth Hammaker in 250SX East. Another subpar showing from Joe Shimoda, I would say, although he was away back on lap 1, so although the result was nothing to scream about, the progress was much better than it was in Denver. Anything stand out from this list for you?
Stoked for Colin. Altitude is a struggle for somebody as big as him on a non-factory 250. He held on to 5th in the championship by 1 point over Hymas. I was trying to do the math in the middle of the race and I couldn't figure it out, so I'm very stoked for Colin on that. Now the rest of it played out not too dissimilar to what I expected. Just Faulkner 22nd. Didn't check PR yet or anything. I did not see it. Did crash or bike issue?
Well, I did read the PR. It had a bike issue.
Oh no!
So let's not let that take away from the fact that Faulkner
finished the season.
Was really good all day on the board
really
in practice.
Good. Was he
5th in his
second
heat.
Or third in time qualifying for quite a while?
Around there. But he's been around there, to be honest, for the last 3 East rounds, and then 5th in his heat, which is of course effectively a main event. And he was up there in the main, 5th, 7th, 8th, around there. So a great day for Faulkner. Just the end result didn't pan out, but nothing to do with him, so he deserves all the credit in the world, and the first time that he has finished a season as a pro. So that in itself is a achievement and something that he's certainly very proud of. And for those who want to nitpick, yes, he made it to Salt Lake City before, but he crashed out in the main event and got injured, so technically didn't see the checkered flag, which is why he counts this as his one season finished. And that momentum should serve him well outdoors. Are we done?
The only other thing I was going to say is, can we say that, yeah, he still got hurt, but I'm blown away that Cole Davies' situation wasn't worse. I really expected a broken back. I mean, I believe it was a compounded teres humerus, either standard break or compounded humerus, and the broken nose. I mean, I definitely thought it was worse. That is one of the nastier crashes I've seen in a while in a race, or I'm sorry, at a Supercross.
Yeah, I can't remember a nastier crash than that. The point of impact, the speed, the force. Yeah, that was incredibly scary. He didn't move for quite a while, but humerus and nose, and by all accounts, he shouldn't really be out for too long, which is a miracle considering the crash, as you said. I think that just underlines that when it comes to crashes, there's a lot of luck involved as to how bad it's going to be, you know? Like, oftentimes you see massive crashes like that where the rider escapes better than they should have, and then minor crashes that have devastating consequences. It's a bit of a weird deal that we may never fully understand. And Jordan is okay as well, just battered and bruised, but he'll be back on the bike this week. And
big old hematoma right above the hip, nice amount of swelling. I talked to him a bit before the night show kicked off. I feel bad for him. Like, you know, I know Jordan has a little bit of a crashing, reputation, but I saw a few people jump on him and blame him pretty hard. And, you know, it sucks at Cole, but honestly, at the end of the day, I think most of us can agree that was a very big error on Cole's part. Jordan said he had a lot of time to think about that one in the air. A lot of time to think about it.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that it was Jordan. Ultimately, Jordan was just doing a lap and Cole was in the race line, in my opinion. So unfortunate that of all the riders who were circulating behind Davies, it had to be Jordan, who, of course, came under immediate fire just from the fact that he was involved. But at least both are better off than they perhaps should be. Jordan will be at Fox Raceway and Davies shouldn't be too long off of the bike. Well, I guess we'll call it there then.
I'm gonna throw one aggressive question for you.
Oh boy.
250. It can be east or west. Most impressive, overperform rider. Most disappointed in. Most unamazing, or one that performed below what you expected and who performed above.
Did you say in east and west or
No,
combined?
it can be either. You can pick your either from either coast. Keep it pretty open and just keep it simple.
I mean, it's not fair to say Tom Vialle for the overachieving because he was the defending champ, but to a degree, I want to say him for getting this done kind of against all odds. So I'll go with Tom, just because I think the manner in which he did this, the fact he wasn't the fastest guy, the fact that he dealt with adversity, the fact that it really wasn't lined up to be his, is deserving of some props. And on the other end of the spectrum, nothing is really standing out. Maybe I was going to say Hymas, but then he came in so underprepared, so behind the eight ball, and he really doesn't have Supercross experience.
It's funny, Hymas falls into that category of the conversation we had about Beaumer, and I actually hit him with that, Julian, about like we've discussed, like if you go off preseason, like we know Hymas had like 3 days on a bike, but because there's a win somewhere in the championship, it definitely skews you a little bit on Hymas, where you could take the road, but then you, like say, you go back to your preseason expectations, and you're like, ooh, never mind.
Honestly, I'll go Joe. No, I'll go Joe on the negative side. That's I'm surprised I didn't get there sooner. Because apart from a win at Anaheim 1, which is a distant memory at this point, again there was the injury, but we're now 5 months on from the injury, and we've really not seen Joe get back to being Joe. So, I think those would be my answers. But actually, on neither side is there really massive standouts. Cullen, of course, would have been another pick on the positive side.
I'm pretty close with you. I could argue either with Tom. I could argue with Colin. I could argue with Seth for the positive side. The negative, I kind of sit the same with you a little bit. Like Joe's definitely was a little strange to me. I know he had the injury, but after the injury should have not been an issue anymore. His last bit of the season was kind of a question mark to me a little bit.
No, for sure. Right. Thank you, everyone, for listening to this Vital MX post-race show through all 17 rounds of 2025 Monster Energy AMA Supercross. The good news is that we will be back for Pro Motocross in just 2 weeks. There's really no rest at all, although there is one weekend off. Maybe we'll be back with a Pro Motocross preview. of some kind at some point. I would imagine so. So keep an eye out for that in some form somewhere. Updates on that at some point. A lot of sums.
I don't know. Why don't we just? Do you want to aim for next Monday morning, like we put this one out?
Sure. Why not? And of course,
Give the people what they want.
Thank you to Decal Works, Yamaha Motor USA, Yoshimura Motorex, and Fox Racing for all of their support of this podcast. As always, those two will join us again to recap every single Pro Motocross round across the summer. Thank you everyone for watching and listening. We will be back next week now to preview Pro Motocross. And we will see you real soon.